Right, guys, welcome to another episode of Raising the Bar with myself, John Cooper, and today I'm welcoming back David Adelman. How are you doing, David?
I'm very well, thank you, John. Lots going on, good grief, lots of changes, lots of fear, lots of everything.
Oh, lots of
but
crazy.
in amongst all the nonsense, the white hats or the how can I put, light workers, all the people with goodness in their heart are stepping up to the plate and meeting each other.
Yes, I've noticed that. Actually, it's brought the best out of me, I would say, and it's brought the best out of a lot of people that I know. I think it's brought out the best and the worst in a lot of people. I think that's what 2020 was for me. It's sort of like whatever you have underneath, it brings out to the surface. So, if you got any negativity, the negativity comes back. But also, if you got a little kernel of courage and bravery, that also came out as well. And I definitely noticed that. But and also another thing that's changed is your name, the rebrand, the People's Lawyer. I love that. Do you want to give us do you want to tell us about that little change as well?
Well, yeah, as I was hinting in the preamble before we went on air, I was I've given loads of talks throughout 2020, and they were nameless talks. It didn't matter who was giving them. But around about mid-December, I found myself on the promenade at Morecambe after being invited there, and there was a fair crowd, actually. I said, hello again. Some of you know me, some of you don't, from various other rallies and online stuff. And I said, my name is, and I got stuck then. I thought, hang on a minute, they don't need to know my name. So what can I give them? So I thought, I am a lawyer by training, long time ago though, and I am for the people, which is why I do these talks. So I just said, I'm the people's lawyer. I think the US has one, so my website is the People's Lawyer UK, so that people don't get confused. And it's just stuck. And to give you an idea of how powerful the brand is, I'm getting new subscribers at the rate of at least at the rate of about 100 to 150 a week. So in 10 years, David Adelman had amassed 3 subscribers. Although I wasn't very active on YouTube, to be fair. And in 3 months, the People's Lawyer has amassed about 1,200 or 1,300. So there's a huge, and it'll soon hit 2,000, and it'll just keep going.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, there's a massive need for reliable law, just as there's a massive need for reliable medical information, and financial information and educational information. Is across the board. And I'm going to hint at the bigger picture tonight. Well, I'm going to more than hint at it. I'm going to just cover. I know that your remit was, we are focused more on law than on anything else, but there'll be a fair amount of bigger picture stuff in the coming slideshow.
Absolutely. I'm totally in your hands, David. I mean, from the last one we did, if you want to watch the last show myself and David did a fantastic presentation about the difference between schooling and education and the dangers of schooling and how, it's detrimental to the child's growth, intellectually and spiritually, so that you can watch that. If you want to watch that, the link's up there. So everyone, David's going to be putting this presentation on. I'm totally going to hand the floor over to him now, and just enjoy the show, because it's very, very important information and very, very useful. So David, off you go, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. Okay, this is for people out there who are concerned, fretting, anxious, and they need to know their rights. They need to know that they need to be given a bigger picture of what's going on and how they fit into that picture. Because it's not all bad news, I can assure you. But if you don't know where you fit into the picture, then that uncertainty can create an awful lot of stress and anxiety. So this is titled the 2021 update from the People's Lawyer. The People's Lawyer just came into existence just a few short months ago, but things are accelerating so fast, it's incredible. So there's the website there, a quick, cheap plug. In order to, there's an American psychiatrist who recently said that in order to stay sane, he has to go about his business as if he were dealing with that he was in one gigantic lunatic asylum. So he says he has to treat people as lunatics until they make enough eye contact and sound reasonable enough that he can basically reverse the presumption in his head that they've not gone insane. So that's my first recommendation. is, in order to stay sane, just treat the world as mad, and that helps, you know, because it means you won't waste too much time on people that are, their eyes have glazed over, they're in total fear and dread, their brains have partially shut down, because when you're in fear and dread, your rational thinking goes out the window. Moving on to a little bit of lightheartedness. Going to the bank. Well, this is an idea of how insane things have got. Before COVID, the cashier at the bank would call the police if you were wearing a mask. And now after COVID, she'll call the police if you're not wearing a mask. This nicely sums up the insanity of the lunatic asylum. Moving on. What have these institutions got in common? We've got banking, law, media, healthcare, food, education, and religion. Moving to the next screen. I've got a series of questions that, while you're thinking about the answer, series of questions designed to highlight the essential fraud, if you like, deceit that's perpetrated by each of these institutions. And when you add all these frauds and deceits together, it basically creates a false paradigm that we believe we're living in and don't believe that there's any alternative to, until recently when COVID hit town and people started to wake up big time. Some of us were already at least half awake, but if you're waking up, then you're realizing, just like The Matrix suggests, the movie, that there's more to life than everything you can see, touch, taste, feel, and hear. So the banking question, designed to elicit some kind of awareness that there's something really not right going on. Do you live in a home built by a bank? And in my talks, I ask that question, and there's a lot of puzzled looks. And then I pause and say, well, no, because there's a pregnant silence. And they say, no, of course we don't. And then I counter that by saying, in that case, why are you paying a bank to live in your home? And I'll leave that with them. The next part of the Ponzi scheme, the global Ponzi scheme, and something that we'll look at more deeply is this one, the legal question, and in particular, who are you? Who are you? Because nobody knows who they are. And they're presuming that they're a certain thing, which they're actually not. And that false presumption basically is their undoing in the eyes of the law. So this is what we're going to focus on later in this presentation. Moving on to media. What is the point of media coverage? What actually is the point of media coverage? It really only was to provide an opiate for the masses and to provide a forum for governance to indoctrinate the people into its ways of thinking and into ideologies that suit the prevailing ethos. There was a false distinction between communism and capitalism, but really governance is governance. It's like the old joke, whoever you vote for, the government always wins. So again, something to ponder. What is the point of media coverage? Where has truth gone? You can have 50, 60, 70,000 people, maybe even 100,000 people line up in London, and the certain media, I think it was Sky, would refer to the number as several hundred or a few hundred. The BBC, unlike the BBC in recent years, actually said there were several thousand, but there were actually tens upon tens of thousands. Moving on, another strand or another tentacle of the beast is the healthcare system. And the question is, what are the only two causes of disease? What happens is we're given a very complex picture of life and health, but it's actually so simple, it's ridiculous. There are only two causes of disease. I'll briefly mention them now while you're thinking. It's toxicity and deficiency. So you've either taken in too much that will harm you, or not taken in enough of what will do you good, like vitamins and minerals and water, oxygen, etc. So if you're wearing a mask, you're not taking in sufficient amounts of oxygen, and you're breathing in your own carbon dioxide. So that's, so that's, health is a very, very simple issue, but it's been made very complex. Again, it's all part of the, if you like, satanic. I don't like that word, but it does cover the situation. It just means negative, dark, hidden, secret, hidden agendas that do not ultimately serve humanity. And that is the biggest understatement I could possibly make. Nutrition. Why does the medical profession ignore nutrition? Why are they not trained in it? They do 2 hours, if that, in medical school. They spend years at medical school. And yet they do literally a few hours, if at all, if anything, of nutrition. Their schooling is designed to make them, is to provide a disconnect between nutrition and health. So that relates back to the causes of disease, which is a lack of nourishment. So if you're eating processed or deep fried or just basically dead food, and most food is dead, I would say 98% of food available in supermarkets is dead food. It's not worth eating. But the medical profession will not tell you to avoid food like that and just eat fresh fruit and fresh vegetables and raw nuts and raw seeds and seaweed. They'll say, no, what you need is, and they start writing out a prescription. Okay, so this is another leg, another arm, another limb of the beast. Moving on. Education. Well, this is something that we covered last time, but a brief revisit. What are the two meanings of the word education? Well, the meaning that I think I covered last time was drawing out, taking a talented boy or girl, or a boy or girl with natural God-given talents, and allowing them to express them so that by the time they reach maturity, they are fully functioning on turbocharged, and they don't need anyone or anything to approve of them. They're good to go. But what we actually have is generation after generation of codependent narcissists who need reassurance and approval and the provision of all kinds of goods and services because they don't have the skills and the knowledge to provide for themselves, and their self-responsibility has gone out the window. The other meaning of education, which I'm relatively new to myself, is the training of animals. So whereas I used to distinguish between schooling and education, and quite rightly, now on some level I don't, because schooling is all about producing fish, like schools of fish, where the emphasis is on synchronized movement, which is what happens in schools, like schools of fish, or the rearing of animals, which is like synchronized complicity, training, knee-jerk response, Pavlov's dogs. So you can't win with education, schooling. It's whichever way you look. We're not dealing with anything that relates to the development of humanity, fulfilling of human potential. Moving on. The religion question. What is the problem with believing in God? Ooh, very dangerous question. This could offend, hopefully this will offend everyone. So no one in particular will have a go at me. The trouble with believing in God is that when you believe, you're taking the position that God is out there and you're in here, and that you need to believe in God to bring God into your life. Well, if God is all that is, how can God need your belief? I'm just asking that as a question. I'm not going to say any more than that. So the danger of belief systems is that they come and go. But if you actually accept the existence of God, God is eternal and cannot come and go. So cannot be part of any belief system by definition. But belief systems, when they're based in falsehoods, make us weak. Anything that is based in lies or falsehood makes us weak. And when we're weak, we're vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, we're fearful. And when we're fearful, we'll accept any old dogma, any old BS, and treat it as truth because it helps us through the day. It's all part of the Ponzi scheme, folks. So let's reiterate the question. What have these institutions got in common? Now I've given you clues. Banking, law, media, healthcare, food, education, religion. Moving on to the next screen. They are crimes against humanity. So this is a very bold statement, but I hope that some of the clues I've given would make you feel that, that this is essentially true, that all these institutions are now weaponized against us to make us subservient, compliant, vulnerable to an agenda which, like I said before, as an understatement of the millennium, does not serve our best interests. Moving on. The system, in a nutshell, could be described as narcissistic, and we're going to have a look at what this actually means in real terms. So we're dealing with a system that shows all the hallmarks of the classic narcissistic syndrome. And let's have a look at what that means. Moving on. Here are 15 signs that you are in an abusive relationship. In other words, in a relationship with a narcissist. And so when I say narcissist, we're talking about the narcissist that is the system just as much as the narcissist that lives in your house or has a relationship with you, either as a partner or boss or sibling or whatever, or friend even, so-called friend in the case of narcissist. Sign number 1, the narcissist stops you seeing friends and family. Number 2, you're not allowed to question it, or he or she. Number 3, it monitors everything you do. Number 4, it tells you what to wear. Mask, anyone? Moving on. Number 5, it tells you that you are crazy and that no one agrees with you. And more specifically, that you've just got that nonsense off the internet. It's an internet template. It's a tin pot doctor who knows nothing. I've been told recently that I must have found literally 3 websites that agree with me. And I tried to tell the person who's actually a family member, no. I was totally open-minded when COVID hit. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. And I only formulated my opinion after I did the research, not before. For the first few days when I got on the metro, I was using my elbows like everybody else. But it just took me barely a week to find out that it was all a hoax. Point 6, narcissistic point 6, controls the finances or won't let you work. Hence the closure notices and closure orders. It's all right. We've got furlough. We'll pay for you to stay at home. Well, if that isn't the most poisoned chalice, the poison Greek gift I've ever heard of, then I don't know what is. And again, when you step onto the government payroll, then you're far more likely to be sympathetic to whatever the government says. Would you bite the hand that feeds you? Number 7, won't let you out without permission. Well, it's not quite as severe as that. It's all a bit of a smokescreen pantomime. We are allowed out. Nobody is. It's just that instead of being a proper lockdown whereby the military point a gun to your head, this is a fake pantomime lockdown, and I actually call it a neighborhood watch scheme on steroids. That's all it is, really. And in fact, I call it the neighborhood snitch scheme. It's no more than that. All the neighbors that watch the BBC are twitching the curtains to see who's compliant. That's all it is. It's not a lockdown. It's an economic shutdown and a neighborhood watch scheme. That's all it is. And please, people, do not stop. Please avoid the word lockdown. It really is not a lockdown. Moving on. The narcissist monitors your phone calls or emails. Well, one of the reasons we've struggled today to get this screen slideshow off the directly onto the call was I'm being monitored. So strange things are happening to my system. Number 9, tells you it's for your own good and that they know better. Well, people who know nothing about anything, like Neil Ferguson, he's not qualified in any way whatsoever. He's neither an epidemiologist nor a biologist. He is the classic nobody. But the government allowed him to dictate their actions for the foot and mouth disease that were disastrous, cost the lives of millions of animals needlessly. And now Neil Ferguson is directly and indirectly costing the lives of potentially millions. Well, if you look at the knock-on effect, we are talking millions just in this country alone, potentially billions worldwide, because the whole world is hanging ultimately on his computer model, which was complete fraud. Number 10, it calls you names or shames you for being stupid or selfish. I think we're all familiar with that. Moving on. It dismisses your opinions. Well, it deplatforms you. I've been deplatformed already from Facebook. Lifetime ban. Just woke up. I put on a letter of conditional acceptance for a vaccine, and that was me gone. Number 12, punishes you for breaking the rules, but the rules keep changing. So now you know that the rules can't be law, because the law is immutable. It cannot change. The law is the law. If the law changed, then the universe would have changed. But the universe is immutable. It's our universe. We're in it. If the laws change, the universe changes, all of a sudden we'd be transported to a parallel universe, which is another day's work. And we're not ready for that yet. So these are just rules. And rules, as we'll come to later on in the slideshow, can be accepted or rejected according to your sovereign desire. And number 13, it gaslights you, challenges your memory of events and makes you doubt yourself. It's amazing how many people who've fallen for the idea that, oh, no, the government didn't downgrade the COVID on March the 19th, 2020, because since then it's all taken off and all hell has broken loose. No, it was downgraded worldwide by WHO, CDC, Public Health England, officially downgraded, but it's that has been brushed under the carpet. And now your memory is challenged when you mention it. So making you doubt yourself is a fundamental to keeping the narcissist abuse victim in line. So this is a massive global psychological operation commissioned by the British. The British, we are at the heart of the beast, folks. The British government are behind, in collaboration with Bill Gates. I'm dropping the kind of names that might mean a bit of problem for this broadcast, but there you go.
It's all right. We'll run with it.
Yeah, BG, if you want to do a rerun. BG, if you want to do a rerun, and we'll say BG. So we are really at the coalface. We are in the front line of the resistance movement. So anyone who's watching this and fueling themselves with knowledge and power, we appreciate your efforts, because without you, this war, and it is a war on humanity, won't be won. But we are beginning to make some progress. There's no question about that. Number 14, moving on. Controls what you read, watch, and say. Well, this is fairly obvious, really. Only the mainstream has the right to say what they say. Nobody else has any right, and they're gaslighted if they do, or deplatformed. And the final aspect of narcissism, it plays the victim if all goes wrong. It's all your fault. Yeah, the government's never wrong. It can only be the people who didn't stick to the rules. So we are in a potentially fraught situation whereby if the freedom movement takes off at big time, then we are potentially sitting ducks to be blamed if their pantomime is playing out and the masses are falling for it. So we have to be cautious and careful. That doesn't mean, of course, that we stop our efforts. Of course not. That's the last thing that we're going to do. It just means we have to have one eye on the positive truth and another eye on the lies to see what they're up to, and see if we can play one off against the other and make sure that we don't get into too much trouble. Moving on to the next screen. So it's not one simple system.
David, can I make a comment on that just before you? Are you moving on to something completely different, or is this still to do with the narcissist and the? Because I had a comment there.
No, feel free.
Yeah, just because I wanted to say to people, imagine if you said to a woman, imagine you said to her, you have to stay indoors and you're only allowed to go outside twice a day, like let's say twice a day for essential shopping or exercise. Imagine you said that to a woman, and imagine if you said to her, when you go out, you have to stay 6 feet apart from anyone and you can't come into contact with anyone. Imagine you said that to a woman. Imagine you said you're not allowed to see any family or friends. Imagine you said, you have to wear a muzzle when you go out. I mean, that's abuse. isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
straight up abuse. No one would accept that for a woman, but when the state does that to us, we're meant to be completely obedient to it and compliant to it. It's the same abuse, but just from a different source. And I think we need to start seeing the parallels there.
We are being treated, and there's even talk of men being curfewed, that men not being allowed out after 6 o'clock.
I know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable.
And yet there'll be millions of people that just go along happily with that. And obviously there'll be a lot of relieved women that take to the streets after 6 o'clock. So it's going to be a real, they are manipulating us so brilliantly. We have to be so careful.
Yeah.
So the beast has all these tentacles, and I've just hopefully shown you what some of the tentacles are, the main ones, and the syndrome that's behind the beast, so that you can identify with what's at stake here. We're going to focus on the tentacle, which is referred to as the legal system, in which our sovereignty, the sovereignty that we're born with, is tampered with, and we end up being in some kind of bonded servitude to the beast through the financial system. But it's the legal system that perpetuates it. I won't go into the details. You can come to talks or watch the videos online now on YouTube, BitChute, and Telegram. But basically, there is a legal name fraud that's taken place. Deception is a better word, because people can benefit from their legal name. So basically your first name, you're actually born live, but then you're birthed into a corporate commercial system. When your parents inform on you, and they're called the informants, they inform on you, and your first name, your given name or middle name as well, is added to the family name, and it creates a legal fiction trading name for the system to keep tabs on you, to take taxes, fines, fees, licenses off you, and to control basically the use of your time and energy. So it has a dark side, and it also has a light side. If you get into difficulty, the same system will give you benefits, which is why they're called benefits, because you are the beneficiary of this system. If you want to know more, you can do my privacy course, which we'll discuss later in the slideshow. Or just watch out for the videos and the talks. There'll be a talk coming near you soon. So that's the basic deception that's visited upon us, and people grow up, especially when they go to school, because the schooling system, you have to register. Anything that you register becomes property of the state. So you register your birth name, or you get a birth certificate. You then register for attendance at school. So you're in the system, and school then indoctrinates you into believing that you are your full name. But it's simply a corporate trading name that you can use legitimately, but it doesn't belong to you, because the law of the universe is whatever I create, I own. The government created it, so the government owns it, and it charges you basically for its use. That's what's going on. And
also,
so
sorry, David, I was just going to say also the capitalization of your surname, right, is because it's always spelt in capitals, isn't it? Your surname, when they create that straw man, and so that's referring to the fact that you are made into capital.
Yes, they are messing around with capitalization and upper and lower case, but essentially, if you see any name in capital letters, it's the name of a vessel,
yeah,
or the name of a person on a tombstone. It's a dead entity.
Yeah,
it has no life in it. Sometimes they do use a normal upper and lower case, and then it becomes a bit more complicated. But what they would do there is they'd attach the title to it. So whenever you see Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. or Doctor or Professor, that's a title that the government have bestowed upon you. It's not the truth. It's not who you are. So basically, all these tentacles are designed to create a massive lie, a massive deception. Remember that Satan, and I use that term very loosely, it's the personification of negativity and fear, is the trickster. It's another word. It's the trickster, the lying machine. And that's what the narcissist is. The narcissist is a police officer who's a narcissist or operating the narcissistic system can look at you straight in the eyes and say, it's the law, but it's a lie. But because a lot of them are now specifically selected for narcissistic tendency, they can lie to you and not bat an eyelid. So this is where it all starts. And what we need to do is to recover our sovereignty by using some simple strategies. So let's have a look at that. Moving on. So we can go from servitude to sovereignty, reverse the process by 3 simple steps. Well, I say simple, they're maybe not easy, but they're simple. So as long as people understand the difference. Simple means they're easy to comprehend, easy to conceptualize, but difficult or not easy means that it might take a while for you to actually do it or to learn how to do it. So step 1 is learn who you are at law, and we'll look at all of these 3 in a minute. Learn who you really are at law. Nobody knows who they are at law. Very few. The ones who are, even ones who are conscious in the conscious movement, no idea who they are at law. You have to be a truther and a particular type of truther to know who you are at law. That's why, you know, this is wheels within wheels within wheels. That's why my rebrand of the People's Lawyer is doing so well, because my basic message to people is, you don't know who you are at law. You need to find out quick to get remedy. Otherwise, you're on the slow train. It's not so slow anymore. You're on the slow train or the quick train to the slaughterhouse. Know your God-given rights and learn how to assert them. So in a nutshell, it's learn who you are, what your God-given rights are. If you don't like God, then talk about, think of them as universal birthrights. The universe gives you as a gift at birth, universal rights, the right to life, the right to self-determination, the right to earn a living, the right to breathe fresh air, etc. The right to live in peace. And so if you know who you are and you know what your rights are, you're almost there. But then the trilogy of power is completed when you learn how to assert them. In other words, you go against your education or schooling, which sabotaged you, fragmented you, and made you vulnerable to attack, vulnerable to authority, and you have to learn who you really are. Here's a classic anecdote. When you are at school, you just imagine, people, that you've arrived at school on a particular day. You're 3'6", and the teacher, who's 5'9" or 6'2", towers over you saying, "Where have you been? Why are you late? And where's your homework?" Now, if you're tiny, or even if you're not so tiny, this is intimidation. This is actually assault. But it is ingrained into us to accept this as normal. It's normalized. It's actually produces complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Later on in life, 10 or 15 years later, when a person in a uniform or with stripes or authority, presumed authority, says, "Where are you going? What's your name? Where do you live?" You give them the answers because 20 years earlier, you blurted out some kind of answer to the teacher. It's Pavlovian training. The correct answer, if you go back in time, and this is where healing can take place, you have to go back in time. You have to imagine that the teacher is towering over you, but instead of cowering away from the teacher, you stand up, you even get on a chair so that you're now meeting them eye to eye and say, "Excuse me, miss, excuse me, sir, but do you really think that that's any of your business? If so, could you show me how?" And that's it. You've just asserted yourself. You've revisited, you've repackaged your entire schooling. And that is the quick route, in my opinion, to heal the damage that's been done. So basically you're saying, who are you to ask me that question? If you really want an answer, I'll give you an answer. Basically, it's none of your business. I've been where I've been, and I'm here now, and that's all you need to know. So can we now get on with the lesson, sir? And I have to say that your lessons are pretty dull, and you should be grateful that I'm even here at all. And did you know, sir, that the word academic translates in the Oxford English Dictionary as of no practical value? So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Factor that in when you're working out who's attending and who's not and why. We're here under duress, because the alternatives to being in the classroom are not obvious, but they are obvious actually between you and me and the listening viewers, that they are totally obvious, but they're just hidden in plain sight. It's called life, as we looked at in the last video we did. The classroom is the planet, and the lesson is life itself. Anyway, let's stick to the law, go back to the law. So we're learning in the next few screens how to assert those rights and what they are, of course, in a simplistic way, deliberately so, because I only have limited time and I just want to give people an overview. Moving on to the next screen. So as I've hinted at, you're born sovereign with free will choice. This is a free will planet, folks. You wouldn't think that right now, the way people are behaving. You would think that they've given up all sovereignty and all free will. And they're saying, well, it's the law. You've got to do it. It's a legal requirement. Well, we're going to redefine all of those things in the next few minutes. You're born sovereign with free will choice. And that free will choice is only taken away with free will choice. You can make a free will choice that you don't have free will choice. I know it sounds ridiculous to say that, but that's what people have done. They've made a free will choice. Some would say that, in fact, that consent is being manufactured. Well, whichever way you look at it, they've made some kind of choice to do away with their own free will choice. Or they're making a choice that smacks of coercion, compliance, blind compliance, but still on some deep level, it's still a free will choice. Nobody is obliging them to do anything because nobody can. And we're going to look at that, what the implications of that in a minute. Next screen. No one is above you at the law, at law. So you're born sovereign with free will choice, and no one is above you at law. Now, this law is not the law that they refer to. This is the universal law, God's law. And the only law that can oblige you to do or be anything is a law, by definition, that's imprinted in you by a higher source, that's coded into you, a moral code that's coded in by a coder. Now, the coder cannot be another man or woman, because if they were, they would be, well, it beggars belief, they would be saying that although I'm just like you, I'm actually above you because I've coded something inside of you that's dictates your thoughts and feelings and actions. So no, only a higher authority can create law. So that would be God or the universe or Mother Nature or whatever or in prime creative source. So when they say it's the law, the fact that it's man-made law, you know immediately that it can't be the true law, that it's man-made law, therefore it is not above you. They are not above you. And if anything, they are below you because they are your public servants. Although strange things have happened since 2000, well, since 1942, actually, we have the Clearfield Doctrine, which says that government, after the bankruptcy of the 1930s, government became corporatized, which is why they collateralized the birth certificates. It corporatized, and now all governance is basically corporations pretending to be governance. And therefore, they are just endeavoring to contract with you, which again, I'll look at in a minute. So they are looking to contract with you because they cannot be above you for two reasons. If they were genuine governance, they've been appointed by you and they're your servants. And if they're not, if they're corporations, then corporations can have no relationship to you other than one that you agree to. So no one is above you at law. Remember that one. Take that home tonight. Well, if you're already home, take it to bed. There's no such thing as legal obligation without consent or agreement. If no one is above you at law and no one can be above you at law, and if they're talking about their laws, they're just talking about rules which you have to consent to. So there is no such thing as legal obligation without consent or agreement, which basically means that their so-called rules have to be consented to on a case-by-case basis. Theresa May, when she was in office, said, and quite correctly, we are policed and we are governed, or we are governed and policed by consent. Now, at common law, you can be presumed to consent to common law, which is a hand-me-down from universal law, which is do no harm, cause no loss, cause no breach of the peace. If you do cause harm, loss, or breach of the peace, then your consent to the consequences is not required, because we're deemed by social contract to have consented to God's law, universal law. We don't have a choice in that. But I'm referring to statutory or commercial law, rules, legislation, regulations, bylaws. They have to be consented to because they are man-made. So anything that's man-made has to be consented to. Moving to the next screen. This means that the following are voluntary acts. Now, you wouldn't know this from the way people are behaving, but these are voluntary acts. Moving on. Answering questions. Sovereigns do not answer questions. Sovereigns can simply stay silent or answer a question with a question, which is how you maintain sovereignty. But if you answer a question, so a police officer says, "What are you doing standing there?" If you just say something like, "I'm just waiting for a friend," or "I'm waiting for the rally to start," you've answered a question and you've lost all authority, all sovereignty, and you've submitted to jurisdiction. So you're now captured and vulnerable to consequences. Another voluntary act, taking tests, taking a vaccine, wearing a mask. They're all voluntary acts. I'm not saying that they don't come without consequences. Of course, some of them do. But they are all voluntary acts. Everything is a voluntary act. You know, where breakfast, lunch, dinner, going to the toilet, they're all voluntary acts. Well, sometimes if you've got a weak bladder, maybe not so voluntary, but virtually everything we do, apart from breathing, is unless your autonomic system is involved, your sympathetic nervous system, which works on autopilot, if your brain is making decisions, these decisions are all voluntary. Moving on. Filling out a form. So those of you who say, "Oh, I've got the census, what do I do with it?" Well, it's a form. And if you open it, fill it out and sign it, you've committed a voluntary act of compliance. There's no obligation to do that. Your signature is evidence for your compliance and your consent. So why would you do that? If you know that, and I'm now going so far as to say that filling out, signing and sending off a census is actually acquiescing to a genocidal agenda. So you're actually aiding and abetting a genocidal agenda. Now that seems a pretty strong statement, and it is. So I need to clarify and explain myself. When they have your signatures, you are in effect, those signatures are treated as being given in support of the government agenda, whatever that government agenda is. And right now it's a genocidal one. So that's all I'm saying. When you give up your sovereignty, when you voluntarily surrender, then you are basically lining up for an injection. And if that injection has genocidal ingredients, then you are in effect lining up to be euthanized or to be sterilized. That's the very least, or to be controlled. So it's either euthanasia, sterilization, or total control. It's one of those three options. But you're signing whatever you're signing up for. You're signifying, symbolizing your consent. So you can't fill out, sign a form, and send it off, and then complain about government agendas. The next one is staying at home. Oh, sorry, no, it's keeping a social distance. Keeping a social distance, a voluntary act. Staying at home is a voluntary act. Closing your business down is a voluntary act. They're all voluntary acts that sovereigns make in all the circumstances, fully informed, and we assume they've decided if they do these things, that it's in their interest to do them. Now, I personally don't think any sovereign with any amount of intelligence and any amount of research done would carry out these acts for any reason whatsoever, in any situation. They would be flying the flag for freedom and sanity. So we have a binary decision to make these days, folks. Freedom and sanity on the one hand, or tyranny and insanity, or the lunatic asylum on the other. And it's a very, very black and white binary choice. Please make your choice soon, otherwise your choice will be made for you. Moving on. Anything you are required to do is merely an offer to contracting commerce. So I hinted when I talked about the birth certificate deception, your full name is your commercial name, your trading name. Whenever they send you a letter in that name, they are offering you a contract. If you're out on the streets, then any question or any communication to you is an offer to contract. And they'll need your name and address and birth date or date of birth in order to perfect the contract. So required in legalese means request. So anything you are requested to do is merely an offer to contracting commerce. So would a sovereign ever feel obliged to do anything in commerce? No, commerce is all about making free will choices. You decide to go for one product or one service, but not another. So the police officer is offering you a fine. Well, it's an offer to provide a service. It's not a particularly lucrative service. It's going to cost you. And you decide that because it's going to cost you, you'll happily decline the offer on this occasion. Thank you very much. Now, there are ways and means to decline the offer, which we look at in videos and in the course that I do privately. But at the moment, I'll just keep it as a generic statement that you're going to decline the offer. Thank you very much. Moving on. I'm going to go a bit psychedelic for some people's taste, but you can either regard this as a bold statement as truth or as something that you can take to bed repeating in the morning and in the evening. I am the law. Now, when I was at Birmingham not long ago, I was supporting David Icke. I actually gave a talk after him. I have no idea why there were three of us that were asked to talk after David Icke, which is not the most sensible timing, but there you go. And David Icke had whipped 2,000 people up into a frenzy. So I thought, I went on stage like Zelig, Woody Allen's Zelig, and people are all frenzied and they're thinking that that's it now, they can disperse. And I creep on stage and people are going, who's this guy? What's he doing? What's he doing on stage? Is he here to dismantle the furniture? And I just said, don't go. I've still got something to say. And I decided that I needed to do the opposite to what David Icke had done. So in other words, calm them down with a mantra. And I said, I've got a powerful mantra for you, but please, before I give it you, please do 30 seconds of silence and I'll feed the mantra into you. And I said, it's not we are the people. It's not we are the 99%, because there's power in those statements, but I've got something far more powerful for you. And the mantra I gave them whispered initially, and then we said it louder and louder as we repeated it. We are the law. So that's it. Once you can take that on board as a truth, you are now immune. That's your immunity. That's your passport. That's your green passport. That's your immunity from everything. Once you know in your heart that you are the law, that your word is gospel, that you are standing under what some people would say is the first phrase of the Bible, in the beginning was the word, and anything that comes out of your mouth, providing that you've trained yourself to speak appropriately and truthfully, is the word of God. And if you don't do God, is the word of supreme authority. Whatever you say, spoken responsibly and in peace and in goodwill, is the law. So when you put up a privacy notice, outside my house, I've got private by appointment only. Nobody can even knock at the door. And nobody has knocked on the door in the 3 years since I put it up. No one. Apart from the post, delivery and Deliveroo or whatever. Because they have my permission. I've contracted with them. So, and if anyone does knock on the door, and they won't, then it's by appointment, and each appointment will cost £10,000 or whatever. So I am the law. So when they say it's the law, no, the law is an I am, it's not an it is. So please take that on board. That's your passport to a better future. moving on. Okay, quick bit of promotional stuff. If you want to know more, well, we covered this in the first slideshow about education. Just to reiterate, if you want to know where most of this damage first takes place, it's in a book called School, ebook, of paperback, School No Place for Children, available on Amazon, and from me personally if you don't do Amazon. So you can contact me. We'll leave a link on the above the actual broadcast, or below it, wherever it is. The People's Lawyer's now got a foundation privacy course. It has had for some time, but that was when it was me. But I've just branded it now, the People's Lawyer Foundational Privacy Course. Again, you can contact me. We are sending out email campaigns now for 2 courses in April. There'll be plenty more. It's just really taking off, where you will find out exactly what I mean by I am the law, we are the law. How to maintain privacy, how to maintain dignity, how to stop, how to massively improve your chances of not being molested by the police and certainly not being arrested, how to prevent debt collectors from coming around, how to see them off if they send letters, you know, so there's all how to stop paying taxes, fees, because if you go private, all these attempts at piracy are on the sea. It's the law of the sea. It's the public law of the sea, the law of commerce in the private. So when you go private, then you are taking yourself away from the pirate ships and into a domain that is impregnable. And in an advanced course, we'll look at a private irrevocable common law trust, which I haven't studied fully yet. But that would be for those of you with substantial assets. I know some of you would want me to be able to do that. I can't right now because I haven't done it for myself. That should happen later this year, though. So this course is more about personal protection rather than asset protection. If you want to know more, if you want to send me an individualized email, then info@thepeopleslawyeruk.com. And the website, which is going to go live soon, is thepeopleslawyeruk.com. So that is the end of the slideshow. So I'll come back. Oh, there it is. The People's Lawyers on Telegram, YouTube, BitChute. So I'll come back live and
yeah, thanks for that. Brilliant. I mean, that's such a great intro, especially into your advanced courses and everything else, because I think that's we need to have that information. I think it's important. But I was going to ask you about that. Is that, do you have to be like a black belt, like Bruce Lee, in all this stuff to be able to navigate through all this? Because I know a lot of people have tried the free man on the land stuff, and then they go into court and they get absolutely burnt, you know. But are you saying that it's just you only need a sort of a white belt knowledge in some of this stuff?
Well, the reason that they get burnt is that free man is not a recognized status.
Right.
The privacy course is not about becoming a free man. It's about becoming, in effect, the beneficiary under a trust or the private individual protected by data protection legislation.
Right.
And also knowing that as the beneficiary under a trust, no one can make a claim against you. So there's trust and equity. See, if you go into court saying, hello, I'm David of the family, whatever, of Manchester, they just laugh at you, because why would David of the family, whatever, of the family Adelman in my case, even come to court? If I'm asserting my manhood, what am I doing in court? Because court is not a place for men. It's a place for trading entities. It's a place for my legal fiction name. So what this course is all about is learning how to handle, in a foundational way, your legal fiction name, not to be frightened of it, which is where the common law practitioners are going wrong, in my opinion, and in the opinion of people who have mentored me. It's about maintaining dignity and not being frightened of the legal name, but knowing how to use it correctly. You can stand under the common law and keep them at bay and never have any dealings with them. Yes, but you're going to get visits. And, you know, you're going to be, if you want true peace, I always say, would you rather be right or happy? You know, I'm not saying that the common law practitioners are wrong. I'm just saying that they're inviting all kinds of stress, and in situations that, especially if they've got vulnerable elders or children, you know, it's fraught. So I'm very much a stress, you know, low stress practitioner.
So what's the difference, David, between those that are trying to assert their position of common law versus what you're teaching here exactly?
Well, you can't assert your common law position using paperwork.
Right.
They don't recognize common law paperwork. You would need a full-on common law jurisdiction. This jurisdiction is statutory commercial. It's legislative. It's crown. It's a crown corporation run legal system where that has its origins in the Venetian bankers' legalese from the Middle Ages. So, and ultimately Roman civil law. So we can bring back common law. It might help to have a Magna Carta 2020 or 2021, a full-on constitution. Even that's fraught, because as soon as you codify anything, you're in wordplay again.
Okay, so you're saying that you're not trying to step outside the game, you're just playing within their game, but just knowing exactly how to manage it in terms of their paradigm, their code, their language, their legalese.
You're playing that game consciously.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not running scared. You are playing the game way better than they play it.
Yeah. And as I said before, do you have to know this inside out to not get burnt, or do you only need a sort of a basic, a fundamental understanding of it?
It's a very, very good question. That's a really, really good question. I would say that if you use so-called templates and hope for an easy life, you're going to get into trouble. You don't need to know it inside and out. There are things that you can do because I've stated the basic principles. There is no obligation to do anything. So if you know that there's no obligation to do anything, for example, if you get a tax return, you just send it back uncompleted, unsigned. If you get a census, you just send it back uncompleted, unsigned. If you know who you are at law, then you know that no one can oblige you unless they've got a signed contract or signed agreement or evidence for your consent. So if you consented to pay tax last year, each tax year is different. You can't argue about the tax that you paid last year because you've consented and signed. But you can step into a whole new paradigm and stop paying tax, just as I did 5 years ago, after paying minimal amount of tax for years as an employee of my own company. I just stopped paying when I realized that I was paying for no legal reason and no lawful reason. Taxation, like anything, is voluntary in the legalese system. The manner where common law is relevant is that common law tells us that we cannot be obliged to do anything which impinges on our sovereignty unless we sign up for it. So if I don't sign up for taxation, that's it, it's gone. And I wrote a letter to the Inland Revenue years before I knew what day it was, just saying I've gone private and my income is none of their business. And they can't say anything against that.
Really? Does that work? Does that really work?
It worked for me and it would work for anyone. So in answer to your question, in some situations, you don't need any other knowledge other than the balls to stand up and say, no.
Does that mean that you're exempt from their services though by doing that?
Services such as?
Like a hospital?
No, because I still have a national insurance number and a national health number.
Right.
All I'm saying is that I'm only signing up for the benefits. I'm not signing up for
right. You can do that.
Well, I've not even signed up for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had free dental treatment, which I did do about 2 years ago, I would just sign because all they want is a signature. But no one's going to come and say to me, oh, you've signed for a free healthcare. That means you've got to pay your taxes. No, because you can pick and choose. Now, there are gurus that I've come across in the past that for some reason seem to think that if you've picked a benefit, then you can't choose to deny liability. That's nonsense. The liability only comes after your choice.
Right.
They can't impose a liability on you. You can only self-impose through choice. This is a free will planet. I'm going to look straight at the camera now.
Yes.
Free will planet, folks. How many times and I hope John will subtitle it and repeat it. Yeah. Free will choice. Everything you do is as a result of a free will choice. Even if you can think of a million reasons to do it. So no, let me rephrase that. A million reasons not to do it, if you see what I mean. Then if you still do it, you've made a free will choice. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is this maybe for another time, David? But it'd be quite good to go into the detail of, the Corona acts, because they're not really laws, as you made it clear there. What are they then if they're not laws? Because a lot of people, when you speak to them, they think everything's enshrined in law, like the mask wearing and the not seeing family members. But what is this technically? I mean, obviously that it's consensual, is what you're saying. But is there a name for this? Are they acts? What are they?
Waste paper.
Yeah.
That if you ask them to produce it, they can't. It doesn't exist. They don't really exist. They just fly through. They fly across the screen on a website. But they change so fast they couldn't print them.
So when they say stuff like in Parliament, there was a Corona Act signed. Coronavirus Act signed. I mean, what is that? Just a waste of paper, or is that actually real?
Well, it's real in an unreal world.
Okay.
So in their commercial fiction world, their legal fiction world, these, what we believe to be members of Parliament, are actually board members of a private corporation called UK PLC. And so we are disenfranchised from that. We're not shareholders in that. We have no say. And when you sign your voting registration form, again, you are signing your permission to have no say. So all it is basically it's minutes of a board meeting, but we weren't at the board meeting. We weren't invited to the board meeting. So how can it apply to us? And it doesn't matter that there's a BBC parliamentary channel. That's not a board meeting. You're just snooping on the board meeting. That doesn't mean you're invited to it, because they don't know who's watching. To be invited to a meeting, you have to actually have an invite. They have to know who's present, and because they have to list, don't they? Present were. I mean, as far as I know, they don't put present were anyone watching on BBC Parliament or whatever, you know. So it's all part of the charade, all part of the pantomime. So that's a long-winded way of saying it's not law. It's corporate rules. Policemen, when they're or women who they're enforcing that, no longer constables. They are policy enforcement agents. Government policy enforcement agents. If they were constables, they would be standing under an oath to uphold the law, the common law, universal law,
or keep
the peace, protect the people. That's not what's going on. The other day in Manchester, we had officers refusing to show their warrant cards and arresting young men who were drumming, not the women, just the men, and sitting on them, breaking ribs and busting lungs. That's not upholding the law, protecting the people and keeping the peace.
Exactly. I was going to say, people are getting arrested. So, I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm going to look at that more fully in another. Well, I deal with it in my talks and in the video clips. So, for people who want the specifics of avoiding arrest, please, we'll look the latest series, which starts this weekend. 2 of the clips will go out this weekend. Is called Combatting Police Tyranny.
Yeah.
We've had in Combatting Global Tyranny, Combatting Medical Tyranny. This one is Combatting Police or Government Tyranny, if you like. So watch out for those. They are also, this guidance is in the privacy course as well. and you get a full set of notes to go with that and audio replays and what have you. But if you just don't want to commit, or you're financially strapped, and who wouldn't be in this day and age, then just watch out for the videos, because I'm deliberately making the videos so that no one misses out on the information.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I was going to say one last thing. I mean, how would you, let's say if you need to get a flight and the airline says, you know, you have to take a test, but it's like a commercial, you know, but there's no real option out, is there? There's no real opt out of that, because you have to get that flight, but they're requiring a test.
Well, I know that it's just a corporate rule, and I'd just say I would send a letter to the CEO. First of all, I wouldn't travel in a hurry, because that's crazy. I would plan my trip carefully and write to the CEO and ask them to justify their policy and to tell me why it is not a breach of every single law, as in international law, international conventions, common law, sovereignty, insisting that I take a medical procedure, because wearing a mask is a medical procedure. It's called NPI, non-pharmaceutical intervention. So on what basis are they insisting that I take, and if I cannot travel because I don't comply, are they prepared? So this is the other technique. Are they prepared to compensate me for not being able to travel? So I need to quantify what it will cost me not to travel, and to send the CEO that bill. Yeah. Or equally, send them a bill for compliance. You can go both ways with it. Happy to comply, but this is going to cost me stress, possibly lung damage, and I'm going to put that at a year's salary. That could take me a year to recover from that. That's 25 grand. Yeah. Or the other form of invoice, again, it's all commerce, so you'd be just invoicing. Invoice for them for the loss, for not being able to travel, and for potential distress, claimable damages for distress under Equality Act, Disability Act, or whatever.
That's for the mask, though. What about the test? You know, same thing, same kind of procedure there.
Yeah, we have to standardize everything to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And for those who've got concerns, I have, and I'm not the only game in town, but there's some brilliant templates. But I've got, on my Telegram channel, I've got 3 templates, conditional letters of acceptance, that are allied to a data subject access request. And when you ally it to a data subject access request, it criminalizes non-disclosure. If you can show non-disclosure, it basically puts the fear of God into them, if that isn't an unfortunate way of putting it. But they have to give full disclosure, otherwise they are criminally concealing data, which is a breach of Data Protection Act 2018, section 173, subsection 3. So those, you've got 3, and these have already been, one of these letters got me a permanent life ban on Facebook. And they've already been proved to, people have told that they have to take a test and bring a mask into a dental appointment, sent one of these letters, and they got a phone call, no, just come in. It's all a pantomime, folks. As long as you see through it, and you've got the tools to assist you, you can cut right through it. It's this is for the masses who don't know what day it is, who've got a mental age of 10, 11, or 12, and just do as they're told, like good little boys in year 6 or 7.
And so they can learn all this through your courses then, just to get right up to speed with all of it. Yeah.
Through the course, you'll get the personalized version. You know, you'll get individualized templates. Well, you'll get the same templates that you would if you know where to look for them online, but they'll be part of a series of notes that explains how to use them, why they work, etc., etc. There's so much on the course. It's very difficult to sum up just in a few sentences, but there you go. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, because I think everyone would like to learn that, I would say. I'm sure all the audience here watching, you'd like to learn this. I know I would. Even just things like how to deal with the police, or how to deal with people that want you to take the mask off and things like that. I think it's, this is important information, isn't it? So,
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that I need to charge for the course because some people can't afford it. But like I say, I'm using the videos to get the information out there by hook or by crook. The price is coming down as the course becomes, as the course students signing up, rather than being one here, two there, three there. It's dozens and dozens signing up, and it'll soon be hundreds. So the price is likely to keep coming down.
That's nice. Yeah, that's good of you.
That's not an incentive to wait 2 years, folks.
Get it, yeah, exactly. Get it now. Because yeah, I mean, there's so much going on, and everyone's so, like you said earlier, they're in a state of paralysis, psychic paralysis, where they're scared to even think critically about things because they're worried what might happen to them. And I think that's the first stage, is just to reclaim your power and know that you are sovereign, and these things are consensual. They're not forced upon you. A lot of people think that you have to do this, but it's a contract, as you said. And even when you said about asking questions, those are contracts, aren't they? So when someone asks you a question, that is a contract. And if you just engage with their question, then that you are actually working to their contract, right? So you can either not say anything, but I heard that even if you don't say anything, that's actually still working to their contract. I heard.
No, not when what they're saying is a question. If you remain silent in the face of a question, then silence, you're operating the right to non-self-incrimination.
Right. Yeah.
But if they level an accusation at you and you remain silent, then they can operate the presumption of silent acquiescence.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's when they're leveling an accusation at you. It's very subtle and very important. And these are the things that we learn on the course. Yeah,
this is great stuff. Yeah, this is deep stuff. This is very, very, this is really going into the nuts and bolts of it all. So yeah, I mean, because I've scraped the surface of this a few years ago. And so that's why I'm kind of familiar with a few little concepts. But from what you're saying, that you really go into this, like you go deep into this and you kind of unravel it all for everyone. So
what I would say, this is a plea to common sense to everyone out there who's listening. The greatest favor that you can do yourself, others, and humanity as a whole is to learn who you really are and what your rights are and how to assert them. Now, that is not a party political broadcast on behalf of the people's lawyer. It really isn't. It's an appeal to truth. You don't have to do my course. There's plenty of other people who will tell you what you need to know just as well as I say it. So look for them. They're out there. Some of them are giving away this knowledge for free. God bless them. And so they should. And the reason I do charge is because there are other things that you can actually financially benefit from. So you get the course fee back, basically. So, but leaving aside all of that, the main thing is that you owe it to humanity. We all owe it to humanity to wake up, grow a pair, and stand up for ourselves. This is the invite from the world authorities. If you do not stand up for yourself now, your future is not bright.